far. Hope your Thursday night tickets cashed. I know if you're a Raiders fan, that was a tough one, but hope it's a bounce back Sunday for Las Vegas bettors as well as Las Vegas fans. Appreciate all of you joining us. Of course, check out our content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Fumble Sports, and of course on Twitter at Sports Fumble. Appreciate all of you joining us for today's action. We're going to jump right into it. We've got a lot of content to get to, a lot of show to get to, so we're going to make quick use of it. Let's start with this game in in Cincinnati, a battle of Ohio between the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns come in with a 5-7 record while the Bengals are 8-4. This game is on CBS. Where I see it, the Bengals are a 5.5-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 46 points. Some gambling trends for you before we get some analysis. The underdog is 6-0 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between the two teams, but the Bengals are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 home games. The Browns are 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 meetings in Cincinnati, while the over is 6-0 in the last 6 meetings in Cincinnati. As we always do, we get some great analysis from one of my favorites out there, Adam. You can check him out at Spotter AJ. Adam, how you doing this Sunday morning?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Oh, just fine. Adam, what are your thoughts on this battle of Ohio between the Browns and Bengals?
So Cincinnati had a big win last week against KC. They made it 4 in a row. They did a real nice job against Mahomes and shut out Kelsey pretty much for the first half. Jamar Chase being back, obviously he's an impact player. On the other side of the ball, Cleveland Watson finally returned after his suspension at Houston, threw for 131 yards, ran for 21, but did throw a pick, kind of knocking the rust off. But I see this game as a really tight division game at home for Cincinnati. Chubb and Hunt. Chubb had 80 yards rushing last week. Hunt had 56, so a combined effort. And Cleveland is 3rd in the league in time of possession. So I see a ball control offense for Cleveland here. Systematically move the football up and down the field, keep Burrow off the field. Burrow's 0-4 as a starter against Cleveland. So a tough division of the game. We always talk about this 6, 7, 8 number in division games. It's just a lot of points. So I really love Cleveland in this at 5-7. Take Cleveland. Cincinnati probably will win this game. So Cincinnati money line is probably not a bad play, but I love Cleveland with the points up to 7. And as far as player props, I know Joe Mixon is back in the lineup for Cincinnati today, but Samaje Perine did a nice job in his absence. So I could see Perine still getting some offense today, and he has an over-under of rushing yards at 18.5. So I like the over in that one too, as I think him and Mixon will split the carries in the backfield.
For me, Deshaun Watson's rust was really a sign of his return last week. I don't necessarily expect it to continue, at least at the same rate. While his numbers were ugly, the ugliest thing about this game is Joe Burrow's record against the Browns in his career. He's 0-4, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Even earlier this year, when there were high hopes for the Bengals to finally get over the hump that is the Cleveland Browns, he was sacked 5 times and had a QBR of 19.4, the worst of his 2022 season. I do think that the Bengals will play better today, largely because that offensive line is better. That's kind of been the crux of the Bengals in the past against the Browns. They haven't been able to stop Myles Garrett and that pass rush. I think they will today. That said, I think Adam's right on the money with this one. The Fumble Sports pick of the game is Cincinnati on the money line, but Cleveland to cover after you buy 1.5. One more for you, a player prop bet that I like. Adam mentioned Nick Chubb a moment ago. For most of the year, Nick Chubb, anytime touchdown, has been a cashing ticket. There's no reason I should fade away from it today, so I'll go with that one as well. Appreciate all of you joining us on this Sunday morning as we go through the entire NFL Week 14 slate of games. Give us a follow at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. The next game we're going to go to and break down is the 11-1 Philadelphia Eagles going up against the 7-4-1 New York Giants. This one is going to be on Fox. The Eagles are a 7-point favorite where I see it, and the over-under is set at 44.5 points. One note, it sounds like Saquon Barkley will be a game-time decision. He's truly a 50-50 status at the moment with a neck injury, so you want to make sure you keep monitoring that if you're a fantasy owner or if you're a bettor. As for gambling trends for this game, before we get some analysis, the underdog is 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 meetings between the Eagles and Giants, but the Eagles are 4-0 against the spread versus a team with a winning record, while the Giants are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 home games. The under is 5-2 in the last 7 meetings between the two teams, but the over is 6-1 in the Eagles' last 7 games overall. Adam, I go to you. What are your thoughts on this NFC East battle between the Eagles and Giants?
Well, also too, there's a little bit of weather in this game, potential for some rain, not much wind, but a little bit of wet weather potentially for this game. And Philadelphia did do everything really well on offense. As I mentioned earlier in the week in our earlier show, they can run the ball like they did against Green Bay to win, or they can throw it against Tennessee to win. They just do everything well on offense. And I'm really nervous about this Giants defense. 18th against the pass and 26th against the rush. Washington last week, albeit a tie, did Heineke did throw for 275 and 2 touchdowns, and they combined between Gibson and Robinson ran for 180 yards against his defense. So again, tough division game. I don't like laying that 7-8 number at all. Philadelphia is 1-4 against the spread in the road this year, so that is in favor of the Giants. So to me, this comes down pretty simple. I think Philly on the money line is the smart play. And if Barkley cannot go today, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Jones and Matt Breida. I would buy this down under 7, maybe 6 or so, and would take Philly. But if Barkley plays today, I definitely would just stick with Philly in the money line in this game with a slight lean to the over.
I feel like Adam's analysis is right, though I'm going in a slightly different direction. I'm going to bank on the fact that Barkley will play in this game, and even if he doesn't play, that the trends historically of divisional opponents going up against each other, where the underdog is getting more than a touchdown in its favor, that cashes around 70% of the time. I'm going to stick with that trend. So that said, the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this game is the Eagles on the money line. I am taking the Giants to cover after you buy 1.5, so that's Giants plus 8.5. And one play I really like for this game is the under. As Adam mentioned a moment ago, I expect there to be at least some rain in the forecast going over MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I think between the sloppy conditions as well as the need for the Giants to run the ball to stay competitive in this game, I expect there to be a lot of ground action. I think it's going to be a running clock. I really like the under. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick of the game, once again, is Eagles on the money line, the Giants plus 8.5, and the under plus 46 after you buy it up. Don't want to hit your head on that ceiling. Appreciate all of you joining us on Twitter Spaces and, of course, on YouTube. Check out our content at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. We will be taking you up until game time today on this Twitter Space and YouTube. We'll go up until 11:30 with all of our game picks, and then from 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time right up until kickoff, we will be on TikTok Live and on YouTube answering all of your fantasy football questions. But for now, we move on to the next game in the 1 p.m. window for Sunday, NFL Week 14. It's the 4-8 Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the 7-5 Tennessee Titans on CBS. Where I see it, Tennessee is a 3-point favorite, and the over-under set at 41 points. Some gambling trends for you. The favorite is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Jags and Titans. While the Jaguars are 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 meetings, the Titans are 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 games overall. The over is 5-2 in the last 7 meetings in Tennessee, and the under is 13-3 in the Titans' last 16 home games. Adam, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this game in the AFC South between the Jaguars and the Titans?
Well, Tennessee obviously made a little bit of news this week by firing their general manager, which is a little questionable. Some say it's because A.J. Brown torched them so bad last week, and that Vrabel, who's going to have more control of player personnel, didn't want that trade to happen. So a little bit of news there this week. But looking at this game, Jacksonville last week at Detroit against a pretty poor defense, didn't really do a whole lot on offense. Lawrence only threw the ball for 179 yards to the air, and they only ran for 95 yards. So that's a pretty suspect Detroit defense. Lawrence did get banged up in that game, but is expected to play today. They'll go to Tennessee, where Tennessee's pass defense is pretty bad. They gave up 300 yards, 380 yards, and 3 touchdowns to Hurts last week. And Derrick Henry has really been struggling on the ground. The last 2 games, he only run for 30 and 38 yards. His over-under this week of rushing yards is 91.5. So you take a look at the under on that one, as Jacksonville does have the 14th ranked rush defense. But this game just comes down to one stat for me. 6 of the last 7 games up until the Philly game, Tennessee has held their opponents to 20 points or less, even with that poor pass defense. So at home, I like Tennessee because of that stat, but I do like them on the money line, not necessarily the spread here, and I don't really have much play of the over-under, but I do like Tennessee in the money line.
So much like Adam, I'm taking Tennessee on the money line. I feel like the Titans need to get off the mat, and this is the perfect opportunity to do it against the Jaguars. That said, I'm not as confident like Adam is on where this spread's going to come down. Trevor Lawrence has missed a couple practices this week with a toe injury. That said, this is a really bad Tennessee Titans secondary. They give up a lot of passing yards. Trevor Lawrence is going to start today. I expect the Jaguars offense to actually do some damage at times. So I think this is going to be a slightly more competitive game than one would have thought. That said, the trends definitely kind of speak to me in this one. You have to take Tennessee on the money line. I will avoid the spread. That said, I am going to take a gamble right now. Speaking of sports betting, I am going to take a bit of a gamble, and I am going to go with the over. I'm going to buy the points down. I'll get it at 39.5. I'm not feeling great about it, but I'm really basing this off of the trend I saw. The over is 5-2 in the last 7 meetings in Tennessee. And given what I just said a moment ago with the opportunity for the Jaguars offense to put up points against the Tennessee defense, I think that's an opportunity to get me over that 40-point hurdle to cash that bet. That said, another player prop bet that I really do like today involves Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry should have a bounce back week. He's been shut down the last couple. I expect him, if you combine his receiving and rushing yards, to go over a 106.5 yards total. So that's one of my favorite player prop bets of the day. It's combining the receiving and rushing yards for Derrick Henry. That's over 106.5. Appreciate all of you joining us on this Twitter space. Give us a follow at Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And of course, on Twitter, at Sports Fumble. We're going to keep going through this NFL Week 14 pretty quick. The New York Jets take their 7-5 record up to Buffalo to face the 9-3 Bills. This one's on CBS. Warning, there may be some snow in the weather for this game. It was worse earlier in the week, but there is expected to be some precipitation. That said, the spread for this one is Buffalo by 10, and the over-under is 43 points. Some gambling trends for you before we get analysis from everyone. The Jets are 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games following an against the spread loss. The Bills are 6-2-1 against the spread in their last 9 home games. The Jets are 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 meetings against the Bills in Buffalo. The under is 5-2 in the last 7 meetings between the two teams, and the under is also 8-2 in the Bills' last 10 games overall. Adam, this is a big game for AFC East playoff standings as well as the AFC overall. Who wins this game between the Jets and Bills?
I guess this is probably one of my favorite plays of the day. The Jets won against Buffalo 2017 earlier in the year. This will be Buffalo's first home game since November 13th against that crazy game against Minnesota. The one thing to think about here is Buffalo's defense is pretty good, but these numbers, if you dig a little bit deeper, they're actually been exposed quite a bit. The last 4 games, they've given up 30, 23, 25, and then finally they got somewhat right against New England by only giving up 10 points. So Buffalo's defense can be scored upon. Mike White obviously has re-energized this offense since Zach Wilson's benching. The last 2 games, he's thrown the ball for 684 yards through the air, which is pretty good, but he did throw 2 picks against Minnesota last week. And they did struggle in the red zone. Otherwise, that game could have been a little bit different. But you're going to have that when your backup quarterback comes in. But I think he's done a really good job. I think the Jets' offense is way more potent with him in it. And also, this line to me is just no respect to the defense. I think this Jets defense is playing better every single week. They sacked Allen 5 times the last time they played each other. And Allen, the last 6 games, has been sacked at least 2 times or more. So I think this game comes down to the Jets defense disrespect. Salah's got these boys playing with a swagger. So I think they go up to Buffalo today and cover this number. I buy it over 10. I get to 10.5 for 11. And I really like the Jets to cover this one. And as far as the player prop, I mentioned before the sacks. Over-under today is 2 for the Jets defense to get sacks. I would definitely play the over on that and buy it up over 10 and take the Jets with the points.
There are 2 teams that Vegas has shown no respect in Week 14. The first is the Minnesota Vikings. We'll get to them in a little bit. The second is the New York Jets. The Jets are a playoff team, and since Mike White came in, they've looked much better on offense. But one thing that has been a constant throughout the season is this Jets defense is a top 5 defense. Whether it's against the run, whether it's against the pass, whether it's their ability to prevent you from scoring, this is a top 5 defense. So for me, the fact that there's weather, only that hinders Josh Allen more than it's going to hurt the offense of the New York Jets. So the fact that this game comes in as 10-point spread is just a complete slap in the face to Gangrene. I think Robert Saleh is going to use this game as motivation. Keep in mind, if Braxton Berrios makes that catch against the Vikings, the Jets win that game, and we're talking a very different story about the Jets overall in the AFC playoff picture. So I don't understand why Vegas is giving the Jets no love. I feel like this is a trap for me. one of our two best bets of the day. We will mention the other one in just a minute. But the first one is the Jets to cover. I'm going to buy the 1.5. I'll get the Jets plus 11.5 at minus 145. That is just great betting. I love that bet. That said, I'm going to be on both sides of this seesaw. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Buffalo on the money line. I do expect them to continue to win and hold on to that number one seed in the AFC. But I like the Jets to cover plus 11.5. That's just too many points for me. I will go with the under 45.5 after I buy it up a little bit. I'm slightly fading away from what Adam said. I know the Bills have been giving up some points on defense the last few weeks, but they've been doing that against some more explosive offenses like the Vikings. I don't expect that to happen this week. I could see Mike White putting up some yards between the 20s, but inside the red zone, I think it's going to be hard to get points for both sides. So I like the under in this one. Once again, that's Butt Fumble Sports' pick of the game is Buffalo on the money line, the Jets to cover 11.5, and the under 44.5 after you buy that up. Appreciate all of you joining us this Sunday morning as we go through every game of the NFL Week 14 schedule here on Sunday. Of course, I have another player prop for you just in case you want to continue to play those for that Jets-Buffalo game. I do like Josh Allen throwing an interception. You're getting that at minus 130. That's over half an interception for Josh Allen, a player prop bet I do like for the day. Speaking of my other favorite bet of the day, we're going to now move to the Baltimore Ravens, who are 8-4, going up against the 5-7 Pittsburgh Steelers. This one is on CBS. Right now, where I see it, Steelers are a 2-point favorite. That's been fluctuating throughout the week. The over-under set at 36.5 points. It sounds like J.K. Dobbins will be back for the Baltimore Ravens, but of course, the big news, no Lamar Jackson. We'll see how that plays a factor. Of course, on the other side, T.J. Watt and Deontay Johnson were both on the injury report this week, but they're both expected to play. Some gambling trends for you. The Ravens are 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 meetings with the Steelers, while the Steelers are 5-2-1 against the spread in their last 8 home games. The under is 7-2 in the Ravens' last 9 games overall, while the under is 7-2 in the Steelers' last 9 home games. I'll take this one first before we get to Adam. This is one of my other favorite bets of the day. My first one was obviously, just a moment ago I mentioned it, the Jets to cover plus 11.5. My other favorite bet for the day is the Steelers on the money line or the Steelers to cover. If you got that at minus 1.5 like I did, I'm making that bet. The other bet I like for this game is the under. You heard on the trends. The under has been a consistent winner for these two teams, both recent history and overall historically. So the Butt Fumble Sports best bet for this one is Pittsburgh to cover and the under after you buy 1.5. Adam, what are your thoughts on this game now that I've already given my pick?
Yeah, I can make a case for that for sure. I'll make this one quick. I'm not as in favor of this game as you are. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's out. Dobbins coming back. That'll help the rushing attack. I think Huntley will be okay at quarterback. Pittsburgh definitely has been playing better. They've won 3 of the last 4, and Pickett's had 0 interceptions in his last 4 games. They are at home, and they do have the 7th best rush defense in the league. So if I did play this game, I would be with you, and I would lean on Pittsburgh in this one. But I do will jump on the boat with you on the under. I'd buy it up and definitely like the under in this game. But as far as the side, I'm just going to kind of hang tight on that one.
There are 2 player prop bets that I like for this one. Najee Harris under 55.5 rushing yards. That's more about me just hating on Najee Harris. Every time I believe in this guy, he disappoints me. He's going up against a really good run defense in the Baltimore Ravens. Again, there's weather in this one, maybe some showers. But that said, I think it's Kenny Pickett's day to throw the ball around. I think Najee Harris will be shut down. I think Pickett will have a better day. That said, I do expect Pickett to throw an interception. That's going off at minus 105. The reason I'm making that bet, and you can hear Vegas doesn't think it's going to happen because you could probably get better odds on the under. But I think Kenny Pickett is kind of due for an interception. He hasn't thrown one in the last few weeks. And so I'm kind of making every once in a while, I'll go against the trends going, man, this guy seems due. So I'm kind of going with that. I like Kenny Pickett over half an interception. Let's continue now to a game we can call pretty quick because this one is one of the more boring ones on the schedule. It's the 1-10-1 Houston Texans against the 9-3 Dallas Cowboys on Fox. Where I see it, Dallas has this now up to a 17.5-point spread. Just an incredible spread for so late in the season. The over-under set at 44 points. some quick gambling trends, then we'll get right to our picks. The underdog is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Texans and the Cowboys, but the Texans are 1-3-1 against the spread in their last 5 road games, and the Cowboys are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 home games. And the under is 5-0 in the last 5 meetings between the two teams. Adam, I'll let you make a quick pick on this one. The Battle of Texas. Who wins, Texans or Cowboys?
Yeah, I think the easy play here is just Dallas with the money line. This 17.5 is, like I said, I think it's the biggest spread we've seen all season long. Just gonna stay away from it. Don't just absolutely not like playing games with those kind of spreads. The one thing to look at here is Dallas. The last 4 games since they lost to the Packers, they've averaged 40.7 points a game, and they've run the ball on an average of 180 a game. Houston's rush defense is 32nd in the league with 168.6 allowed on the ground. So it's easy for me. Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, anytime touchdown is probably a really easy play here. And I'd actually lean to the over on this one. I think Houston will be good enough to score 13, 17 points in this game as Dallas's defense has been playing better, but I think they can get scored upon, and Dallas will score 27-30. So I do have a slight lean to the over and Dallas on the money line.
So I'm going to cut to where Adam and I agree. 2 of my favorite player prop bets of the day are Tony Pollard anytime touchdown and Ezekiel Elliott anytime touchdown. Those tickets have been cashing nearly every week over the past month, and the Houston Texans have the worst defense against the run in the NFL, and it's not close. I also agree with Dallas on the money line. That seems like an obvious one. I'm just folding that into a lot of parlays with other teams throughout the day. Now to where Adam and I disagree. I like the under in this one, and the reason for that, the Texans have some injuries on their offense. No Brandon Cooks, no Nico Collins. That leaves only Dameon Pierce, and you have to believe the Cowboys are going to be putting all of their defensive attention on stopping Dameon Pierce. So while Davis Mills gets his job back, I think it's an impossible task. I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points on the Texans side. My only concern is the Cowboys put up so many points they could probably cover this spread on their own. That's my only concern. But for now, the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Dallas on the money line and the under after you buy 1.5. Now let's go to what may be surprisingly my favorite game of the entire day. I expect a shootout in Detroit at Ford Field as the 10-2 Minnesota Vikings play the 5-7 Detroit Lions on Fox. As I mentioned earlier, the Minnesota Vikings are getting no respect as they are underdogs in this one, with the Lions a 2-point favorite where I see it, and the over-under is set at 53.5 points, excuse me. That's been fluctuating throughout the week. That may be lower where you see it, but where I see it, 53.5. Now let's get some gambling trends before we break it down. The underdog is 4-0 against the spread in the last 4 meetings between the Vikings and Lions. While the Vikings are 5-1-1 against the spread in their last 7 games overall, the Lions are 9-2 against the spread in their last 11 home games. The under is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings in Detroit, and the over is 4-1 in the Lions' last 5 games versus NFC North opponents. Adam, who would have thunk it? The Vikings-Lions is actually an entertaining game. How do you think this one plays out today?
This is probably the game I'm most interested in seeing today. This line opened at -1.5 Minnesota, and now it's swung all the way over to -2.5 Detroit. People just like to bet Detroit. They can score a lot. Their defense does give up a lot of points. They're 32nd in the league, giving up 27 a game. They have been playing better under Dan Campbell, but I'm with you on this one. This is just a complete lack of disrespect. I know everyone is on the Vikings as they're lucky. They're this, they're that. They don't deserve to be 10-2 and all this, but they win games. They win tight games, and if sometimes you need luck to win these games. But for them to go on the road this year, or go on the road in Detroit and be an underdog, and they're 4-1 on the road this year, to me is just complete disrespect in this game. I think of the two defenses, they're not very good. I do believe Minnesota does have a slightly better defense, but they can clinch the North with a win today. So with all the money swinging to Detroit and everyone on them because they can score and stay in football games, I absolutely love Minnesota in this game. I'd buy it up over 3 to 3.5, and I think the Vikings win this game outright.
We're going to learn a lot about the Minnesota Vikings today. No, this isn't a primetime game against what is one of the better teams in the NFL. The Jared Goff-led Detroit Lions are a good team, but they're not a great team. But we're going to learn a lot about whether Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings are legit. And what I mean by that is they have been disrespected. Vegas is laughing at them. The country at large is kind of saying that 10-2 record is nonsense. We're going to find out if Kevin O'Connell can push the right buttons and motivate his team to surprise the haters. Now, I'm with Adam. I love the cover play in this one. I like Minnesota plus 3.5. As long as I'm getting it by more than a field goal, if I could get that to 4.5, I really love it. But I think Minnesota will be competitive in this game. Just expect a lot of points. These are two really bad defenses against the pass. These are two really good offenses in passing the ball. Meanwhile, the Lions also have Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. So I just love offense in this game. The one storyline that's going to kind of get lost in everything is TJ Hawkinson. He got traded from the Lions to the Vikings, and it feels like the Lions didn't miss a beat, where the Vikings, I think, really got better with that deal. Expect Hawkinson to have a good day against his former team. That said, the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Detroit on the money line. I think Vegas is trying to tell you something. If Vegas doesn't believe in the Vikings, maybe you shouldn't either, at least when it comes to the money line. So I like Detroit on the money line, the Vikings to cover plus 3.5 after I buy a 1.5, and the under, and I bring that down after I buy a 1.5. Blease, I see you got your hand up. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, just wanted to bring up something that someone tweeted out. They have Minnesota. They have Justin Jefferson, 100 or more receiving yards, and a Justin Jefferson anytime touchdown. And looks like they parlayed that for plus 550 odds. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
I like it only because I think the Lions secondary is going to give up a lot of yards. I think they're going to give up a lot of points. And Justin Jefferson at this point is just showing that he is an elite wide receiver. So week in, week out, I feel like that's a good bet. My only concern is about that touchdown. I think Cousins will have a lot of options come red zone, whether it's Hawkinson, Cook, Thielen, or Jefferson. But the yardage I really like. That said, 2-player prop bets that I really like today both fall on both of these quarterbacks in this Vikings-Lions matchup. Kirk Cousins over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I'm getting that at minus 130. And Jared Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I'm getting that at minus 145. As you hear my analysis, you can tell I think there are going to be a lot of points in this game, lots of offense. I could see the running backs getting into the end zone, but I still like the quarterbacks both getting at least 2 touchdowns, and that's why that's one of my favorite comboed player prop bets of the day. Appreciate all of you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out too, Lions have the worst defense. Vikings have second to the worst defense. So they aren't like the Vikings defense as of late, the past few years.
That's the Vikings defense against the pass, and the Lions are the worst defense in terms of allowing points. Correct?
I just saw overall they were like the 31st defense.
There you go. Appreciate all of you joining us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and of course on Twitter. Give us a follow at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. We are just plowing through NFL Week 14, covering all the games. The moment we're done with this, we're going to switch over to TikTok Live. If you're watching us on YouTube, you don't need to go anywhere. We will continue to broadcast on YouTube right up until kickoff. That said, we are now going to shift to the 4 p.m. games. We're just motoring along right here. The next game we're going to talk about, the 9-3 Kansas City Chiefs go up against the 3-9 Denver Broncos on CBS. Where I see it, the Chiefs are a 9-point favorite. The over-under set at 44 points. Some gambling trends for you. The Chiefs are 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 meetings in Denver, while the road team is 12-5 against the spread in the last 17 meetings between the Chiefs and Broncos. And the Broncos are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 home games. As for the total, the under is 5-2-1 in the last 8 meetings between the two teams, and the under is 5-0 in the Broncos' last 5 home games. Adam, I'll start with you. Big game in the AFC West if you're the Chiefs. As for the Broncos, this is more about pride. How do you feel like this one plays out?
Yeah, Denver, obviously a tough loss. They had leading in that game at Baltimore last week. Kansas City coming off that tough loss against Cincinnati, now travels to Denver. I'll just keep this one real short. I think Kansas City with the money line is a smart play here. They seem to own Denver over the last couple of years, especially with Mahomes at quarterback. Denver's defense is always going to be there. They're always going to play tough. They're going to hold the opposing team to 20 points or less. So I absolutely love the under in this game. I would buy it up to 44, 45 and play the under in this one. And I look at it as Denver's offense won't be able to move the football. Denver's defense is on the field a lot during these games. So they're going to eventually get worn down with Kansas City. Kansas City's eventually going to wear them down and score points in this game. So I think Denver doesn't score a lot, and then Kansas City does enough to get it done. So I would buy it up, like I said, and take the under. As far as the line, I would just go Kansas City money line, as we always talk about. Anything over 7, 6 or 7, it's so hard to play in the NFL these days.
I have to agree with you, Adam. I like Kansas City on the money line, and I like the under in this one. The Broncos offense just doesn't score any points, and I think the Broncos defense will play well enough. Look out for Patrick Surtain II. I talk about him almost every week. He's one of my favorite corners right now in the NFL. So for a lot of reasons, I think the under is the smart play. But the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that's an easy money line play. I am in some bets, even though I'm not going to put it out as a recommendation, in some of my personal bets, I am taking the Broncos to cover. I'm getting that at 10.5. I figure a touchdown and a half is a decent play, given that, again, I think it's low scoring. I think it'll be more competitive than people think, more because of the defense of the Broncos than anything else. Keep your eye out for Latavius Murray. I think he could have a decent day, as well as Isaiah Pacheco. The running game of the Chiefs needs to be on point today if they're going to be able to put up points against that Broncos defense. So that's one of the places I'm looking to get some action. Appreciate all of you joining us on Twitter Spaces. Give us a follow at Sports Fumble, and on Instagram, YouTube, and on TikTok at Butt Fumble Sports. Going to continue moving on to the next game. This one has maybe the greatest storyline possible. The GOAT versus Mr. Irrelevant. But we'll get to in a moment how Brock Purdy and Tom Brady have more in common than you'd think. But as for the game itself, the Bucs are 6-6 coming into this one, going up against an 8-4 San Francisco 49ers. This game is on Fox. Where I see it, the 49ers are a 3.5-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 37 points. Before we get to some gambling trends, like I mentioned a moment ago, you would think these two quarterbacks are on polar opposite ends of the world, but they have some more things in common than you may think. Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick in 2000, didn't get his opportunity right away, but when he came in 2001 because of an injury to Drew Bledsoe, Brady not only played well, but played inside the Charlie Weiss offense that was really predicated on run the football, don't have turnovers, and let this Bill Belichick defense dominate. Well, flash forward to today, Brock Purdy is a 7th-round pick, and he's taking over a team because of an injury to Jimmy Garoppolo, in which he's going to be asked, find your talented wide receivers and running backs like Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, and let the defense go win championships for you. So while you may think that the GOAT and Mr. Irrelevant are very different, they started actually in very similar places. That said, let's get to some gambling trends now. The Bucs are 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 games when playing on a Sunday following a Monday night game. The 49ers are 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 home games. The under is 5-0 in the Bucs' last 5 road games, and the under is 6-2 in the 49ers' last 8 home games. Adam, what are your thoughts on this game between the Bucs and 49ers?
Yeah, this line is set because of the San Francisco defense and running game and how good they are on offense, right? It's not because of Brock Purdy, but he did get another week of first week reps this week, so I think that'll be good. I think San Fran is just going to rely on the run game, giving him some smart plays. You know, he's got confidence, right? He played well last week. He's got some confidence, but I think they're going to be smart with him on offense, give him some safe pass plays, run the football. But I think this game comes down to defense for me. Nick Bosa is supposed to play today. He's questionable, but they said he most likely will go. And this defense last week against Miami had 2 interceptions and 3 sacks. And that Tampa Bay offense is just absolutely stagnant. Last week, 3.5 quarters, it did absolutely nothing against New Orleans. I know Fournette is expected to play today, so that will help Tampa. In a close game, I can't lay the 4 in this game. I do like San Fran on the money line. The over-under is a little bit too low for me to make a play on it. But I think San Francisco is just an overall better team here. And with Purdy at quarterback, obviously it's a step down from Garoppolo, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. And to me, I'm just not a believer in Tampa. Like I said, their offense has been stagnant pretty much most of the year, and their defense is kind of middle in the road. They are 18th in the league against the rush, and that's where I think that San Francisco will focus on in this game. So I like San Fran with the money line and stay off the over-under.
I'm going to be quick on this one. The Butt Fumble Sports pick of the game for this is San Francisco on the money line. That said, I will take Tampa Bay to cover 5 after I buy the 1.5. I just have to believe that Tom Brady will understand how important this game is and understand also the defense he's going up against. We'll have to get the ball out quickly. find his wide receivers. The 49ers are one of the best defenses against the run, but against the pass, they're a bit more vulnerable. Not much, but a bit more vulnerable. So I have to expect Tom Brady's going to get the ball out quick, use Rachaad White in the passing game more than the running game, and try and get Godwin and Mike Evans involved. That said, the trends kind of speak to me on this one. The under is a popular play. I'll go with it just based off of what the trends are. So I will take the under. Once again, that San Francisco money line, Tampa Bay at +5 to cover, and the under 38.5 after you buy a 1.5. Appreciate all of you joining us as we race through NFL Week 14. Definitely a fast show for this Sunday morning as we're getting through it. And that way we can go to TikTok Live and answer more of your fantasy football questions. We will continue on the last game of the 4 p.m. window. This one's between the 4-8 Carolina Panthers and the 7-5 Seattle Seahawks. This one's going to be on Fox. Where I see it, Seattle is a 4-point favorite, and the over-under set at 44 points. Some gambling trends before we go to Adam for some analysis. The Panthers are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games overall, but the Panthers are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Seattle. The over is 6-0 in the last 6 meetings in Seattle. The under is 6-2 in the Panthers' last 8 games versus NFC opponents, and the over is 7-3 in the Seahawks' last 10 games overall. Adam, what are your thoughts on this game between the Panthers and Seahawks?
So some news this morning. It sounds like Walker will be out, and as well as DJ Dallas. So that goes down to Tom Jones Jr. and Travis Homer in the backfield for Seattle. So I think that's pretty big. Your first 2 starting running backs are going to be out for Seattle. Geno Smith has been good. He's thrown at least 2 or more touchdowns in his last 6 games. And they got a win last week at the Rams to stop a 2-game slide. Carolina's coming off of a bye and heading out to Seattle. Because of the running back situation here, I'm going to stay off the line. Seattle money line could be a small play for me. But the one thing I'm looking at is the under in this game. And the reason being is Carolina's defense has been pretty good. The last 3 games, they've only allowed 10, 13, and 15 points. And their offense obviously doesn't score a whole lot. Seattle's defense last week against the Rams had 2 interceptions and 4 sacks. Carolina is 0-5 on the road this year, so that's why I kind of have a slight lean to the money line with Seattle. But I really like the under in this game when you buy it up to 1.5. Because of these 2 defenses, and especially now with both starting running backs being out for Seattle, I'm not sure where the points are going to come from in this game.
I feel very similarly to you, Adam, in terms of Geno Smith. I like Geno Smith today in the passing game, given that the running back situation for Seattle. Another running back to keep your eye on is on the other side of the ball, D'Onta Foreman. He's really come on since he got the opportunity midway through the year. He's been battling a foot injury, but he is expected to play. Seahawks run defense has just been atrocious of late, so I expect Chuba Hubbard and D'Onta Foreman to have decent days. That said, I'm going to go with Seattle. I'm going to buy the 1.5, get Seattle at -2. I'm not feeling great about this one. A lot of people in sports media world have started to talk about how the Seahawks were a hot team early in the year, and they're kind of fading. I understand that, but at the same time, I think this team got new life last week in 2 ways. One, they played in a very emotional game against the Rams and got the win. If they had lost that would have been incredibly disappointing. But secondly, I think Pete Carroll and this team knows that all of a sudden they're in the hunt for not just the NFC playoffs, but the NFC West. With the injury to Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy taking over, this race is far more competitive than it was even 10 days ago. So if I'm the Seattle Seahawks, this is a must win. It's in Seattle. You have to believe. Carolina traveling out to the Pacific Northwest and facing the 12 is going to have some kind of factor. I think Metcalf and Lockett both have good days. I know DK Metcalf has been banged up this week, but he is expected to be a full go. That said, once again, the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Seattle to cover after you buy a 1.5. Appreciate all of you joining us on Twitter Spaces. Of course, give us a follow at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and at Sports Fumble on Twitter. Let's now move to Sunday Night Football, an interesting game between a couple of quarterbacks who were drafted within one position of each other. That is Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert, as the 8-4 Miami Dolphins play the 6-6 Los Angeles Chargers on NBC. Where I see it, the Dolphins are a 3-point favorite, and the over-under set at 52.5 points. Some gambling trends before we give you analysis. The Dolphins are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 road games, while the home team is 7-3 against the spread in the last 10 meetings between the Dolphins and Chargers. The under is 12-2 in the last 14 meetings between the two teams, but the over is 4-0 in the Dolphins' last 4 road games, and the over is 7-2 in the Chargers' last 9 home games. Adam, what are your thoughts on this game? A lot of AFC playoff picture implications on the line. Who wins this game between the Dolphins and Chargers?
I have never been back and forth on the game, I don't think, in 2 years, and I have in this one. This is just going to be a great matchup, and I can make a case for both sides of the fence in this one. So Tua is going to play, and he was questionable earlier in the week, but he will play. Armstead, his tackle, is still questionable. Jalen Waddle is now off the injury list, so we should have a whole complement of offensive weapons for Miami, and that's bad news for this Chargers defense. Devontae Adams torched them for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns last week, and it's even going to get worse. 3 starters are out on the Chargers defense, including safety Derwin James. So to me, that is huge. The other thing I look in this game is the Chargers offensive line has been absolutely terrible. They gave up 5 sacks last week. Corey Linsley will be back today, so that will help shore up that offensive line, as well as Williams, wide receiver, to help. But going back to this offensive line, the last 4 games, they've given up 16 sacks. 16 sacks in the last 4 games. That's absolutely atrocious. And Miami's last 3 games are averaging 4 sacks a game. That's 3rd in the league. So I think this game just comes down to Miami putting pressure on the Chargers. I love to take the Chargers in this game, but I just can't with everything that I've mentioned with the injuries and the way Miami can move the football through the air. I think this is going to be a tough task. So I like Miami with the money line in this one. If you can buy it down to 2.5, I'd have a slight lean on that one. And as far as the over/under, it opened at 50.5, and it's skyrocketed now to 54.5 and 55 in some places. So that is a lot of money on the over, and rightfully so. Obviously, both teams can score at will. So I'm going to lay off the over/under on this one, but I would take Miami with the money line and bet it down under 2.5. It's just back and forth in this one. Like I said, I can make a case for both sides, but just his injuries and the offensive line of the Chargers is just too much for me to overlook in this game.
Interesting. Adam and I are looking at this in a similar way, but from opposite ends. So I look at the Dolphins' offensive line, and I see how banged up they are at the tackle position. You saw how vulnerable Tua Tagovailoa was last week against the 49ers. I'm not going to claim that the Chargers' defense is nearly even in the same category of being good as the 49ers, but I see some reason to be slightly concerned about the Miami Dolphins. Meanwhile, on the other side, I'm seeing the Chargers getting healthier at wide receiver. When Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are on the field together, Justin Herbert in this offense is just better. They're different. They're superior than what people think. So my expectations for this one have kind of hinged on what the injury report is throughout the week. That said, I do like Miami on the money line simply because I think they're a more talented roster overall. I think this is an important game for them. So I do like Miami on the money line, but where Adam was kind of on the fence, I'm going to be a bit more definitive. I do like the Chargers to cover after I buy the 1.5. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Miami on the money line and the Chargers to cover 4.5 after you buy a 1.5. Appreciate all of you joining us as we go through NFL Week 14. Had a lot of fun so far just answering all of your questions. We will now get to some best bets for the day. I'll leave Monday Night Football to tomorrow. We'll have our own show for that one. Hope you join us for that. That said, my best bets of the day go to 2 games from the 1 p.m. window. I like the Steelers minus 1.5. I'm getting that at minus 110. And I'm getting Jets plus 11.5. That's getting minus 145 odds. I'm buying the 1.5 on that one. So again, the Butt Fumble Sports best bets of the day are Steelers minus 1.5 and the Jets plus 11.5 after you buy a 1.5. And just to be candid, our best bets record is 18-9 on the season, though we've had a couple weeks in a row of 1-1 showings. So hopefully we can get a 2-0 day for you. Adam, I know I'm putting you a bit on the spot, but what's your best bet of the day?
Well, I have 3 that I like equally the same, and I buy the points up in each one of them. And that would be Cleveland, the Jets, and Minnesota. I think those are my 3 favorite plays of the day, but make sure you buy those points up, especially the Jets get that over 10, get Minnesota over 3, 3.5, and Cleveland at 7 to 7.5.
Appreciate all of you joining us on YouTube as we take you through NFL Week 14. Before we sign off, I will hand out some player prop bets as well, just in case you miss any of our action. I like Josh Allen over half an interception. I'm getting that at minus 130. I like Joe Burrow throwing an interception. I'm getting that at minus 115. A Nick Chubb anytime touchdown. You're getting that at even money right now. Love that play. That's been cashing throughout the year. Kirk Cousins over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I'm getting that at minus 130. Ezekiel Elliott anytime touchdown. I'm getting that at minus 148. Jared Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I'm getting that at -145. Najee Harris under 55.5 rushing yards. That goes off at 115. And Derrick Henry over 106.5 rushing and receiving yards combined. I'm getting that at -115. I know this is one of our faster shows of the year so far, but I appreciate everyone joining us. Of course, Adam giving some outstanding analysis. If you're not following Adam, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Check out his Twitter at SpotterAJ. That's at SPOTTERAJ. Puts out some great analysis, knows his stuff. Definitely give him a follow. And of course, give us a follow. But Fumble Sports, a new sports content company. Follow us on Twitter at SportsFumble and on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Fumble Sports. That's all we're going to do in this Twitter space. Go shoot over to TikTok Live as we're going to be answering fantasy football questions right up until 1 p.m. kickoff. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't worry. We're going to come right back in just a second, so continue to watch our channel at Fumble Sports. Appreciate all of you joining us this morning. Good luck in your bets today. And of course, again, follow us at Fumble Sports on TikTok Live and on YouTube. Look forward to talking to you on Monday Night Football. We'll probably be back 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday night to pregame that Arizona Cardinals Patriots game. But that said, good luck in your bets this week. Hope you all get cash tickets.
Look at the so-called under